look up at the stars and try to pick out all the planets. I do. And we are getting ready to have another 4-year cycle of Venus. And if you are interested in learning about what that is going to entail for you personally, along with possibly the next 8 years, you need to check out my video tomorrow with Practitioner Deborah Robinson. And we're going to talk all about what the 4-year cycle of Venus is in our lives personally. So make sure that you check it out tomorrow at 6. There's the link below. You can listen to it while you're getting ready. You can listen to it while you're driving home for work. It's going to be pretty interesting. So make sure that you check it out tomorrow at 6. Tune in then. Hey guys, welcome to 9 Lives Energy. My name is Chrissy Smith, and together we energize your body from the inside out. I have Practitioner Deborah with me this afternoon, and we are going to talk about things that are all magical with the planet Venus and how that is changing our lives currently, what things that we need to look forward to as we enter into the next 4-year cycle. A lot of people think that all this stuff is just woo and it doesn't really matter. In fact, I actually talked to somebody the other day, and we were talking about the best place to visit for the eclipse that is coming up next year in April. And I said, well, I've really gotten into astrology. I said, the planets are talking to each other. And he said, no, they're not. And in my mind, I'm like, I know something you don't know. So anyway, I'm so glad to have Deborah today. We're going to kind of break down what it means to see what the houses are. And she does such a good job of explaining, how these universal energies are going to affect us. So we're going to have a chart up, and I'll kind of be pointing to these so that we can kind of see together how this is working in our lives. If you would like to have a birth chart reading by Deborah, you can see her email in the description box below. You can also see it running on the ticker below as well. And she has a breadth of knowledge. I've learned a lot from her since knowing her and having her on my channel as we do this Tuesday every couple of weeks. And I find astrology so inspiring and also empowering, because I feel like since I've dived into this, I've been able to see how my life has been able to transform. So as we look at the planet Venus, wherever it is in our chart is basically making a 4-year cycle. So we want to think about where our lives were August of 2019. And I was sharing with Deborah yesterday and the day before, and I said, I don't know what I really want to talk about. I want to talk about the 4-year cycle, but, we can take this in a couple of different ways. But I just found it, Spirit was telling me that I needed to share my personal story about where I was in 2019 and where I am now. So in 2019, I felt like I was basically completing an 8-year cycle, but I may have been completing a 4-year cycle that was kind of part of another 8-year cycle before that. So I told my mom, I said, I'm actually completing like 16 years right now. I'm so excited. Because looking at astrology, I've been able to grow as a person, because I can kind of see where I may have made different decisions and how I could have shown up differently. Basically, a birth chart is your personality. And it basically is a map, as Deborah has explained in past videos, that it's a map of your life. And if you kind of know the direction, you have the map quest, you're not off on some wild, crazy road, ending up on probably some horror film because something went wrong in your life. Or maybe you needed to take that path so that you could learn something to come back around and be even stronger the next time. So I don't know about you guys personally, but in 2019, I purchased the house that I'm living in right now. And within a few months, I pretty much had to strip everything down to the foundation and start over. The air conditioning went out. I ran into the garage. had a yellow jacket infestation, and then 2020 happened. So I ended up cleaning up even more of my foundation, all right, to start the new year, unbeknowingly to me, of that, or the first year of that Venus cycle. And then the next part of that 4-year cycle, I started cleaning up myself internally. What am I listening to? All right. Where am I getting my information from? What am I using for entertainment? How am I treating my body? And innately, I started making transformations within myself on the inner level. So when I kind of became awakened to what astrology was at the beginning of this year, I'm getting ready to close out this last 4-year cycle. So now it's like, all right, who do you want to be for the next 4 years? How are you going to show up differently? What relationships serve you? Which ones did not serve you? What have you learned? What are you willing to let go of? What are you willing to forgive yourself for so that you can move forward? Venus is the planet of love, right? Not only the planet of love for how we feel about other people, but how we feel energetically, the passions that we have. I'm so passionate about astrology. I'm so passionate about being a YouTuber and a content creator. That's what Leo is. My Leo, all right, even though I'm an Aries sun, I'm a Leo rising. So we're getting ready to go over here to the chart right now because I want to show this to you guys. And Deborah's going to kind of explain this just a little bit. And I'm going to bring this down here. This is where the planets are going to be for next week on the 13th. Now, next week on the 13th is when we have our star point Venus. Deborah, would you like to explain what the star point Venus is? And then we're going to go a little bit more into this chart right here. Sorry for the tennis shoes on the side. I'm still kind of working on how to make this a little bit bigger, but this is the astrology chart. Folks, if you wanted to follow along with me here, this I got this on astroseek.com. And this is an amazing source or resource. You can go over here to free chart calculator. All right. And the one thing that you do need to know is you need to know your birth date and you need to know your birth time. So basically what I'm doing here is I am putting in the time that Venus will be in her star point next week. So that's going to be the 13th of August. And we're going to put our year here, which is 2023. And, you know, if you don't know what your birth time is, then if you can hit unknown time, but I like to hit 12 noon. That usually is the default time. Am I correct, Deb, in saying that?
You are, yes.
Okay, I want to make sure. See, she's astrologer extraordinaire. I'm astrologer novice. So this is the birth chart for our Earth next week. And as you can see right here, okay, I don't know if you can see like this little point here as I'm going around in a circle. This is where Leo is for the whole world. It is going to have a, is this a Cassini? Is that it? Of the sun, which is at 20. I mean, I'm not the star point of 20. I'm sorry.
They're going to be conjunct together with the sun, Venus.
Conjunct.
And they're together. They will be together. And simply, that's exactly what it means. It will be together. So it will be, that's the time that it will be the brightest in the heavens. Also, what it means is that instead of seeing Venus in the evening time, you'll be able to see it in the morning. So it switches from being the evening star and it changes to being the morning star, so you can see it then. And if you know it or don't know it, Venus and Mercury are the two planets that actually are close to the sun always. They're always close by. And so with this particular time and with Venus being a 5-point star, and when you start looking at the number 5, because it correlates with numerology too, and 5 is a lot about changes, because if you make the number 5, you got the line going, and that's pointing to the future. The line coming down is us, and then the swerve to the back That is the past. So you got all of that incorporated. And Venus is the planet, as you said, it's about love, it's about beauty, it's about our desires. And with it going retrograde in Leo at this particular time, and you talked about the houses, and Leo rules the fifth house because it is the fifth sign. And Leo is all about, it's the fire sign, it's about creativity, it's our egos, it's the entertainment, it's the childlikeness of us. And here you have the wheel that has each house. And it's real simple, it's not complicated. Every astrology sign, and we have 12 astrology signs, and we also have 12 houses. So it starts with Aries being number 1, and it ends up with Pisces being number 12. And each one of them represents a house. So that's what we astrologers look at. One of the things that we look at when we do a birth chart, where a planet is in that particular house, gives us an indication what is going to, like you said, with the personality, or what's going to happen with your life. And so it gives a lot of explanations to a lot of questions. One thing about astrology, you said, was a map. I think it's a GPS. Same thing. Because it gives you some guidance as to where you're going, what you're doing, what you're looking for, those desires. And so it closes all those gaps. Now, when you talked about the 4-year cycle that we're in with Venus starting, because Leo went into cycle on the 23rd of July. And so here we have Venus that went retrograde on the 22nd of July. And so anytime that you look at something that goes retrograde, again, it's about reviewing, it's about rethinking, recalculating, all those beautiful things. And when I look back at 2019, I was like, wow, I was going through something financial as well. And at the same time, there were a lot of friendships that that broke up for me in 2019. So I spent a lot of time crying in 19 because I thought that I was losing something. But I did not realize that the universe had everything in order. And it knew that these relationships needed to come to their completion. And so completion is quite different than looking at something that we're losing. So the completion of these relationships made room for the many new relationships that has formed. And that's why this is called the new of the Venus, because it is in retrograde. Now in 2015, that was 8 years prior. So that's considered a full cycle. And so this one is finishing out one and starting a brand new one. So we are into the newness, the new what? Venus being about love, being about beauty, being about money. So it's more introspective than anything. Why? Because it's in Leo. Leo represents the heart, and the heart is the matter of all things. It sensitizes everything. And so lots of things that have happened in our world today, we have been desensitized to humanity. And so love is in there getting a good overhaul in Leo. And you think about that fire that it's in there, and with the sun, because Leo is ruled by the sun. And so these two that are coming together, giving us a brand new, it's just like having a new moon. So at this particular time, we can sit down and we can write what we plan out for the next 4 years. Yep. And that's manifesting, and that's having this visions and dreams of the different things that we can do. New relationships may start. That's absolutely fantastic because we've let those old relationships go. That's why when we step into astrology helps us to understand who we are, as well as it helps us to understand who others are. If it had not been from astrology, I promise you, I really feel like I would still be in that judgment mentality of saying, oh God, what in the world is the matter with them? But by me knowing the majority of people's signs, their sun signs, because the sun sign is what is going to show up every day. That's our ego. That is our ego, the sun sign. And so when I find out, I've got friends from the Aries all the way to Pisces. And so when they're talking and conversing, my mind is always thinking, oh, that's why they said that way. Oh, that's why they're acting that way. And so I'm not condemning them. It makes me more patient with them. And I love that we are in the age of Aquarius, because Aquarius does rule astrology as well as it rules numerology. And so therefore, it helps us with these groupings. And so when I step back and look, because I didn't think about it either, as I'm still learning these wonderful qualities when it comes to astrology. When I now look at the groups that have been formed, and unconsciously and consciously knowing that the spirit has aligned all of these relationships. When I say much better relationships, And so now moving forward as to what's happening in this next 4 years, love relationships is high on the agenda. And on top of it, authenticity is high on the spectrum in being able to have relationships that are better suited to work, as well as learning how to detach from those relationships that are no longer serving us. So it's a real special time, and being informed about it, it's like I said, with this new moon attitude that we can have with Venus, new settings, what our intentions will begin to be for these new relationships. Could be wonderful marriages if you believe in marriage, or commitment. However, it is going to be different relationships. So that's what Venus and the Leo are really speaking out to us. And in the giving part, it's like, are you giving from a transactional perspective? In other words, are you expecting something back? Or are you giving from the heart? All the questions are, what are you doing from the heart? And creativity, oh my goodness, creativity at this particular time is coming from the inside. Shoot, we think AI is something, but the human aspect of it, when I say we're going to be getting downloads now, and this applies to all, to the collective. So awake or not, whether somebody does something with it is a different story. But it is happening to us all. To know where you are in the individual spectrum of it, that's where you do need to have a birth chart done. And as Christy said, you can go to AstroSeek, or you can go to astro.com, you can go to cafeastrology.com, you can go to, it's so much information out there, but being able to sit down with someone that's able to assist you, to start you on your way, to be able to understand all these things and be able to apply them, because the stars, the planets, the signs all work together with us on a personal basis as well as a collective. And that's where the rubber meets the road right there, because once we are taking care of our individual lives, we are constantly affecting the collective. And the world is changing. So with this being a 5-pointed star, Venus, And with the number 5, because Leo rules the 5th house. And then when we look at it, also has to do with children. So there could be a lot of children that are born during this time. As we can see, they're finding out a lot about our children that are being abducted. A lot of children are being found. So the heavens see all of these things that are happening, the trafficking. All of this has to do with Venus bringing all of these things up because our children are loved. So there is things that are happening in our society that are aligning with the heavens, and the heavens is actually helping us. And to know how it's helping us helps us in our day to day. Because if we don't understand what's happening in our day to day, then we will think that our future is bleak and the past has continued to rule. But we are in this wonderful span, Christy, of these 4 years, because when, like you said, when I look back at what happened in 2019 and how in 2023, wow, what progress. And we talked about that yesterday. I was like, I am proud of us.
Yeah.
Because so many times when we look back in our past, it's to look at the sad things or what didn't happen. And when we began to look at what is happening now, you could have never told me that 2019 would have been for my benefit, and that the different groupings, and I was thinking about that when I was driving down the highway today, the different groupings that I'm with now. It's like, wow, I have tribes here, there, and it is all because of the heart area opening up. Now, this is one of the things that I want to say. When it comes to the sun, and when we talk about our solar plexus, that is one of our energy centers, and it's right located at the navel area. That is like the sun. It's yellow. It's our energy. So when I say we have a lot of energy at this particular time, so harness the energy. If you wake up in the morning and you feel charged, that is the universe. Because Leo, when Leo comes in, that is the time when it is the hottest, because the sun is expressing. So our internal power is going to also help us with our external power, and the desires that we have said that we want. This is a time when this can happen. Again, it's going to require some patience. Again, now listen, when it comes to that ego, you got to remember that there's opposites in this thing too. So the ego could just be truly inflated. And I'm sure we all know someone that has an inflated ego. So be mindful that your ego is not so inflated that it thinks that people don't want to be around you. Or it could be to the point where you're muted. You don't want to say anything because you think that people are going to say, she just talks too much, or he just talks too much. So you don't say anything. So there is always balance. Make sure that you're not to the left so much that you don't say anything, or you're too much to the right that you say too much. Because after all, Leo is about being on the stage, being in the forefront, having the courage, having the confidence to be able to stand out there, to be that bright star, that morning star, so that we can move this ship right along, this ship meaning this planet, so that we can have this progress. And don't forget about those downloads. Now, here's the thing when it comes to love. Love must be unconditional. And what that simply means is when you move away from judgment as to you think what somebody should have done, or in fact, what you think you should have done. And that just helps us to get up off ourselves, leave you alone, and leave others alone. I have a friend that says this all the time. I'm minding my own business.
Mhm. Yep.
And I just think it's so funny when she says that, but it is absolutely true.
Yeah.
Mind your own business and be in the heart space so that we continue to not only grow, but that we can use power in its rightful consciousness so that we can get these things done. And it's helping us to move away from having to be dependent upon someone else. And one other thing I would like to say about Leo is a fixed energy in the
Mhm.
grouping. And what that simply means is that it is the stabilizer. It helps us to achieve what we need to achieve. And so it gives us that boldness that we need, but it is definitely considerate of others. It's never to the point that it does not consider others. So that's my 50 cents, Chrissy.
Yeah, Leo is all about the heart. And if we there was another chart, and I guess I'll have to pull it up next time that we're together. But this chart said, okay, well, once we have the different houses, so I'll pull that house chart back up as I'm explaining it. So this is what it's looking like in the sky. So as we said, this is house number 1, this is house number 2, this is house number 3, and each of those houses are represented by different themes. And they're also represented by different signs. And they're also represented by different planets. So the sun, its planetary sign is most comfortable with Leo. And that is in the 5th house. And the 5th house, if we go back here, all right, this is the one that's about our creativity. This is the one about how we get pleasure. You might have some inner child stuff kind of coming through at this moment. And maybe you didn't get to play as a child. So now you're kind of playing as an adult. So what would that look like? Or, why should we just not have fun as adults? We can have fun as adults. We don't have to just have fun as children. But what does that mean? Are you surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded? Relationships that are good at giving and receiving, relationships that support you. Right now we are in the North Node in Aries. And so if we look right here, this is the sign of Aries. And the opposite sign is in Libra. So we need to kind of think and take a look, because at a collective level, it's asking you to have balance in your life, good work balance, good relationship balance. Relationships not only with others, but we got to put the oxygen mask on ourselves, relationships with ourselves. If we look at this chart here, this chart kind of has the opposite energy of it. So number 1 would be the house of self, which is controlled by Aries. And so in order to learn how to be good to myself, maybe I need to learn how to have a good relationship with other people. How do I show up in the world to other people? Am I egotistical? Am I a narcissist? Do I overtalk people? Am I impulsive? Sometimes when we take a look at ourselves on a deeper level, it's like, oh, why do these relationships keep happening to me? Well, Venus is doing a review. Okay. Are you the same person that you were 4 years ago? If you're not, then let's start choosing different relationships. And so for me, my first house, so if we add this chart back up here, my house 1 is in Leo. I didn't know that about myself. I thought I was just in Aries, because my sun is over here in Aries, I believe in the 8th or 9th house. I think it's in the 8th. And because I'm supposed to transform my life at 45 years old. But because Saturn is in my first house over here, Saturn is our big granddaddy planet. And wherever we have Saturn, that is where we're going to have the most challenges. I had the most challenges in my life being able to show up in the world authentically. Okay. And Leo controls entertainment. Leo controls Hollywood and being behind the camera and music and creativity. So that's why I've decided to do this YouTube channel and be on social media, okay, is because Leo likes the limelight. I didn't know that about myself, you know? And so now, since I put so much love and aspiration into this, I'm being supported by Venus at this time to say, all right, this is your child. Nurture it. What do you do for creativity? Okay. What do you do that you're passionate about? Put love into these projects, and the universe will support you and give you the relationships that you need at this time. And when I look back on, we're talking about moments of the heart. It doesn't have to just be relationships that you have with other people. It can be your relationship with money. It can be your relationships that you have with yourself. It can be the relationship that you have with your job. Is your job not serving you anymore? Is it not allowing you to be creative like you once did? Do you feel like BB King, the thrill is gone? Are you in a relationship that feels like that? The thrill is gone. And it's not that you don't love that person anymore. Maybe you're just moved and want to experience something else in the world. And if that relationship that you were with is kind of preventing you from being that, then it's not that you don't want to be with that person. It's like you want to be able to be in the world to show up differently now. Venus is supporting you to do that for the next 4 years. If your marriage is kind of at that 7-year itch and you're like, do I like this person still? You may need to just kind of think about, how is that person showing up in your life? Is this a relationship that served you at one time that no longer does? Do you want to be someone else? This is why I highly try to get people to look at what their birth chart says. So again, you can go to Cafe Astrology. You can go to astroseek.com. And when you do that, you will get a little chart that looks like this. And you're like, oh my God, I don't know what that means. That's when you call Deborah. Okay? Because she's going to give you some insight about what all this stuff means. And it's very cool. It's very, very cool because you can kind of see how you show up in the world. Okay. If this person was born this particular time right here, it looks like their ascendant, all right, is on the last degrees of Libra. So if you take this line and you go all the way across, you can kind of see that they have a Libra ascendant, but they have a sun in Leo. So they are going to make sure that relationships in their life, that's going to be a big deal to them, because Libra is the sign of relationships and it controls the 7th house right here. That one is all about relationships and marriages and partnerships. So when it's in our 1st house, that means the house of self. That is how you show up in the world. This person is going to show up as somebody who wants to look, let's go back to the chart. All right. So looking at here, the person was wanting to have some achievement in this world, is wanting to have a career or vocation, probably dealing with relationships, perhaps, because if that's their ascendant sign, maybe they have a career as a counselor. Maybe they have a career as some type of healer. Maybe they have a career as a teacher. What are they going to achieve that's going to allow them to feel confident in the legacy that they leave here? When we think about our legacy and why we're here, and my mom said today when I went to her house, she goes, I'm 70 years old. Relationships are the most important to me right now. My family is the most important to me right now. I'm like, then you get on that, mama. You make the time with your family, and I think that once you get at a certain point in your life, you get to be in a place of comfortability. This is how I show up in the world. I'm comfortable with myself. I love myself. We had a meeting this past week at work, and we had to do some type of bingo game. And one of the questions on the thing was, what do you like to cook? And so that was somebody's question to me. And so my answer was, I cook myself breakfast every morning. I make French toast. I put some fruit on there. I make eggs and bacon. I make just this nice tomato, sausage, cheese, and egg sandwich for myself. I treat myself like I love me. I treat myself as if I'm my own soulmate. I'm my own partner. Because if I'm treating myself like that, then I know that I'm not going to be putting up with anybody else's crap that's not going to treat themselves like that or treat me like that, because I'm not settling for that. I'm putting out there into the world how I want to be treated by treating myself like that. So therefore, I'm going to be attracting relationships that treat me as equally like that. My cycle of Venus has closed. I'm not showing up in the world now giving so much to relationships and not allowing that person to go through their experiences and trying to do the work for them. That left me broke. That that left me with a lot of tears. And I'm able to start over again. And thank goodness for astrology that I know how to start over again. Since I've made these changes, folks, I have done a 180 on my life. I've lost 30 pounds, seriously. I lost the desire for alcohol. I've lost the desire for things that just, they have chemicals in them. They served me at one time to get me wherever I needed to be. But once you start looking at health a little bit differently, it's like, why do I want to have a relationship with something that makes me feel like I need this in order to survive? Coffee. Do you get a headache if you don't have coffee in the morning? Are you addicted to that relationship? Are you addicted to that cell phone? I'm excited for the next 4 years because the chapter has closed with the relationships that I used to have. So I don't have a whole lot of new relationships, but that's okay. The ones that I do have, I value a lot. And those are the ones that I go to and randomly call at 7 o'clock in the morning. Isn't that right, Deb?
Yes. And it's quite all right. You can call me at 7 anytime you want to.
What else would you like to add about the star point of Venus, or to tell the listeners today anything magical that they would like to kind of see how this is going to be affecting them? I've given my example with Leo being in the first house and kind of showing how the wheel goes around and what house is going to be affected for you. Before she starts that real quick, I do want to just say this one more thing. If we look right here, this wheel, okay, it turns like this. It goes around and around and around and around and around. So if I was Leo here, all right, in my first house, so let's just imagine this little red thing is right here at the first house. That means this is affecting my first house. If Deb, who's a Cancer sign, and her sun and her ascendant is here, we're going to move that wheel a little bit down. That moves this Leo energy down to the first house. That's why it's important to know what your ascendant is, because that is the house that is going to be affected, and you just keep moving it around. Okay. So that's a little nugget about how to kind of review that. Deb, would you like to add anything else before we close this evening?
Yes, ma'am. I did want to say, because when you talked about values, and Venus definitely, because it is the ruling planet for Taurus as well as Libra, our values, what we value, and as we can see, the values of many things that we have placed on is changing, and that's good. So there's a lot of transformation that's happening here. And the metaphysical life is a life that is so wonderful because it includes spirituality, it includes nature, and again, because there is a trine that's happening, and that's anything that's 120 degrees away from them. Let me get my chart here. 120 degrees is happening between Uranus and Pluto. And that has an effect on it because Uranus is going to be squaring with Venus. And anytime that anything is squaring, when you hear that terminology, that means that there's tension being put on those areas. So there could be a lot of suddenlies happening, quick things. So this is quick happenings that are going to be happening to us. So I read this little portion and I thought it would be just interesting to say this is about realignment. This is about recalibration, reevaluation of our relationships with both others and ourselves. So that's what's real beautiful about this. No one is left out when it comes to our world, because our world is impacting the bigger world. So whatever you do, and I have my Leo heart pin on to keep reminding me that love is at the center of understanding what our values are, what we really truly desire. And you talked about relationships and they being at a point of decision making. And so this is a lot about introspection. And you talked about fun too. Do something different. Don't do the same thing all the time because you're going to keep getting the same results. Put that fun element in there, that Leo, put that silliness in there. Just have an enjoyable time and do what you need to do to bring the courage forward, the confidence forward, be the heart of the matter, and let this Venus energy that is right now ruminating for the next 4 years so that we can move this ship along where we need to in our individual lives as well as the collective.
Now, we're not saying people are going to break up. I think a lot of people are going to be breaking up. Okay, but
that happens anyway. So
yeah. But you know, this could be a time for you to kind of reignite your marriage, like go on a special trip without the children. You know, do something fun that attracted you to that person to begin with. I promise you that it will spark something because they realize that you remembered them. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. All right, guys, if you got anything out of this, if you would like to make an appointment with Deborah, again, her information is in the description box below, and it has been running across the ticker. It is rrobin12 at Bell South Net. All right. And she would love to get together with you and help you just like she has been able to help herself and many others who depend on her. She's one of those people that they ask her for information or she brings the good energy and the calm and the peace, probably because she's a water sign, but because also she knows how to balance her energy, you know, and once you know how to balance your energy, you know how to show up in the world better. And, you know, you end up transforming your life and you're not just a physical expression. You've actually worked with your inner self, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, which is 3/4 of yourself in order to show up different physically. And that's what the controllers of this planet don't want us to know, because then it's easier for us to be controlled versus if we know what makes us unique and how we all have just magical gifts. And once you start looking, I don't want anybody else's magical gifts. I want my own. I'm excited about my magical gifts that are coming in right now. And I'm just so full of life and so energized. And I feel 10 years younger. And I feel like I'm getting a do-over. Venus is giving me a do-over. And I feel like I have a second chance at love. But it could be with somebody. It could not be with somebody. All I know is that Venus is allowing me to love me first. And that is going to allow other people to come into my life that love themselves as well as love me too. So thanks so much, Deborah. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to 9 Lives Energy. And we will see you with our latest outro that my friend made for me. Bye-bye, guys.